Are we live now?
Just a moment. Yes, we are live.
Perfect. Right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to day 5 of Tech Week 2024. I'm Gajendra, your host for this incredible event. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you all with us as we step into the final day of what has been an inspiring and insightful journey. Over the past few days, we have had the opportunity to deep dive into the latest trends in technology, hear from the industry leaders, and engage in thought-provoking discussions. Today, on our final day, we have saved some of the best for last. We have an exceptional lineup of speakers who will be sharing their insights on Gen AI and LLMs. As we kick off day 5, I encourage all of you to stay engaged, ask questions, participate in discussions, and take full advantage of this opportunity to connect with our speakers and fellow attendees. You will find their LinkedIn link in the comment section. Before we start the session, let me quickly tell you about us, CloudxLab. We are an e-learning platform with a gamified environment to help you learn coding. We specialize in niche tech space like big data, AI, DevOps, and data science. One thing that makes us different is our lab, a highly specialized environment where we have tools, applications, and frameworks like Hadoop, Spark, Scala, Flask, and much more installed. We are dedicated in providing not only the best education online, but we also go the extra mile and help our learners get placed. For this, we organize an exam called Placement Eligibility Test. It's a free exam being conducted on 5th of August, so in the next 2 weeks. Learners clearing this exam are selected and their profile is shared with many companies that CloudxLab has tied up with. And in this way, we try to bridge the gap of providing quality candidates to good companies, all at no cost. I would request our viewers to take advantage of the placement eligibility test that we are conducting again on 25th of August. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our next speaker, Gaorav Vishnoi. Gaurav is a seasoned and hands-on technology leader with 17 years of experience in developing cutting-edge enterprise software products and solutions within both startup ecosystems and large multinationals. Gaurav is at the forefront of leading AI transformation for organization and is a TOGAF certified enterprise architect. His expertise and leadership have been pivotal in driving technological advancements and innovation in AI. He loves to code and mentor team by doing pair programming and running architecture workshops and design approval boards. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed speaker, Gaurav Vishnoi. Thank you, Gaurav, for
Hey,
joining us today.
yeah, thank you, Gajendra, for good introduction. And and even for the deep dive, you can go to my LinkedIn profile and check it, right? Uh, so in this tech week, I am here to present a session on how to revolutionize the payment orchestration with the AI and ML. So I work in an organization called CellPoint Digital, where we are the leading orchestrating platform providers, right? So here in this we'll be going through the challenges what AI and ML can solve in this field and how this can benefit the businesses for this. So without much time taking time and let us go to the agenda of today, right? So first I'll go through the what is the payment orchestration. Sorry, I have to share it also. Oh, so Gajendra, is my screen visible, right?
Yeah, it's visible, Gaurav.
Okay, so yeah, so we So let's move on to the agenda first now. So our agenda today is to briefly understand about what the payment orchestration is. Then we'll go move to the next point, which is how AI and ML can influence the payment orchestration in different functions. Now, next is will be the what can be the challenges using these technologies in this field, and later on we'll be taking a use case where uh, we'll be solving a industry problem like how to reduce the dropout using intelligent routing with the help of AI ML. And then I'll be in the last we'll be having a small demonstration of small brief code where we can try to understand the concept and prove it with the hands-on, right? So let's deep dive into it. So this is the so what is a payment orchestration platform? It's a platform or a system that simplifies or optimize the payment process for the merchants, because when we see that the businesses they are expanded across the globe in multiple countries, multiple regions, and when they try to take a payment from the customers, they need to face a different legal challenges and different geographies has a different rules, and with that they have to integrate with their local providers of the payment and the different regions, right? And there is also a problem which they face is they need to go through the industry guidelines to accept the payments, like they have to follow the standards like PCI DSS, uh, etc. And then there comes the value added services that they need to provide, like the fraud services, fraud check service, then the currency conversions, and all the strict standards that the payment industry follows. So what the payment orchestrator do is they provide a simple interface for a business to integrate, and then it abstract all the complexity behind the scene so that they can get all different kind of payment methods integrated to their business system without much integration, or without having to spend a lot of money doing the development for different regions or different payment methods, right? So in one shot they will be having the facility, or they will have the benefit so that they can take the payment across the globe with the followed industry is standard, and providing all the features at one. So the different functions that payment orchestrator go through is they integrate between the multiple payment gateways or the payment service providers to provide a single interface. Then most important part is the routing. When we integrate with the multiple payment gateways, so when to switch between those and how to optimally uh, process this transaction through those processors to reduce the cost for the business, and also to also maintain the conversion rate of the customers, right? So the conversion rate is another main metrics that they need to increase, right? Then there will be different tools that we need to integrate with the fraud. For the fraud preventions, there are different fraud service providers, and they also work with different payment gateways and also in the different regions. So they are specialized in certain fields. So that is also a point of orchestration where we need to do the routings and switching based on different parameters. Now the optimized we have to optimize the user experience also. When the payment pages are presented, if the use it is not optimized, then what will happen it will increase the dropouts in that case. So these are the function that payment orchestrator brings to the benefit for the business, that the currency conversion with the accurate rate with different providers, in the data security and compliance, because the for payment processing the standards are PCI DSS and other compliance for taking the data for like GDPR is also important. Apart from these, it also provides the analytics and reporting and seamless integration with the other e-commerce platform as business required. So this is a complete function of the payments orchestrator. So now let's try to think on how in these functions AI and ML can be utilized and can be beneficial for the business. So first use case, that is it is a smart payment routing, right? So in this case, the these ML algorithms can help us analyze the transaction in the real time, and uh, in the dynamic payment environment, they will be looking after the different dynamics, like if the payment service provider is not available, there is some downtime, or uh, at certain regions there is some outage or something. They can do some kind of predictions based on the past data, and it can help us choose the best route to route this transaction to uh, get the payment in one go. That means it will increase the conversion rate for the platform. Right, so dynamically we need to optimize for this. There are different technologies in AI ML like reinforcement learning, the Q learning, that adopts the routing strategy based on the transactions outcome. Right, we can utilize those algorithms to uh, boost the efficiency. That the real time we take the transactions and do the analysis on those with our trained model, like the decision tree, and it can be reliably help us route the transaction to the different gateways. And also these predictive analysis with regression model can also help us to minimize the cost based on the cost of the payment processing through the different platforms. Right, so this is a very good use case for the payment industry, where the algorithms can be used and optimize the conversion rate, reducing the cost, and reducing the payment dropouts. Next use case will be like the fraud prevention. In this case, the the transactions will be analyzed live in the real time, and they will be scanned for any anomalies or any fraudulent activities that are happening, and it can prevent it on the real time. So this is also in the current industry, when primitively it was based on certain rules, but later these rules are configured manually in the environment, and whenever certain criteria match, it stops that transaction and make keep it in the review queue, right? And then when it reviewed, it is then manually being processed. So this also cause some kind of friction in the payment, and also increase the dropout due to this. So in this case also, we can employ the convolutional neural network to detect anomaly and do it in the real time. We can use the k-mean clustering and different algorithms for the to detect the fraud patterns, right? So these machine learning models, they can when analyzing data, they can come up with a different pattern which is which is hard to detect for a human. So these algorithms can detect it, and we can deploy it for the fraud prevention. These model are also, if we apply some reinforcement learning or something, they will be beneficial for they will adopt it, and this model will be adopted, and they will learn new patterns with the provided data, and it can help us in the fraud prevention there. So now the personalization of the payment here. So when the customer goes to the payment page and try to find out which is the best payment method to use. So based on the customer's behavior, we can these the algorithm can suggest which is the best payment method that can be utilized by that customer. So this is based on the recommendation model. So it's the same kind of a recommendation system based on the past users' behavior, right? And if it is able to predict the correct uh, payment method, it will be a good experience for the customers, and it will increase the conversion rate for the client, for the merchants. So intelligent currency conversion. So currency conversion, it if the currency rates fluctuates in the real time, right? And when merchant offer these rates to the customer, it has certain uh, some lag is there, right? So could be some lag, or there could be some arbitrage between the cross-border transactions, like the currency rate can be different in the uh, due to some different platforms, or the different PSPs which they have agreed to provide this currency exchange rate in the real time. So choosing between these and finding the least cost option for those. In this case, we can use these time series analysis, and we can try to predict the fluctuations, and accordingly we can offer the rates, currency conversion rates, and process the transaction using that. So in the security, in the security compliance is another function where we can use AI to detect anomalies or the attacks on our systems. And if they detect a attack, uh, they can fire an alert, or they can do some corrective actions on those things. So these are the things, right? In the threat, they can use to be they can be used for the threat mitigation, and the yeah. So deep insight with AI is another good function, right? Because use we industries have the lots of data for the past transaction, and trying to make out certain good insight over this to detect the customer's pattern of purchase, or uh, that could be a different use cases, right? Like uh, one use case is for the detecting the customer's purchase pattern. Another would be how they something how some products are performing in different areas, and what are the payment methods that a customer use usually. Right. So based on these data, we can produce some kind of insight that, for example, if a customer is trying to purchase purchase for he's trying to purchase some grocery item, he is more likely to use the uh, payment method called the UPI, or already stored in the wallet, right? Not not likely for using the credit card. So these kind of patterns that can be analyzed, and these insights can help a business to promote the right kind of payment method in the right region, so they can increase the conversion and increase the purchase. Yeah, so enhancing the customer service, right? So in the IT industry, it is the common practice, right? Any service provider, they get some customer issues, and they need to go through a very uh, it's a very normal process of collecting the data from them, and then matching it to the previous issues, and if that is there, then provide the solution to the customer based on that. So in that case, the chatbots are the main front runner in that case, right? The chatbots can be made on that technologies, and they will what they will do is they will reduce the work of a human in that case, and they will just collect the data and try to find out if that matches to the uh, previous kind of issues. They can provide a solution, and if it needs the human intervention, then only it will switch to the human for the customer service help. The same is using the RAG. So if there, because there are lots of LLMs available in the market, and they are good at the conversational AI. Now using the RAG, we can provide them our. We don't need to train those model on our own industry data or the own company's data. We don't want that data to be uh, exposed outside. So we can use the RAG uh, with by providing the RAG, that is a knowledge base of your own business that is available as a file or as a some database which can be consulted by the LLM model while answering the question. So that is one good use case where that is the mostly being used by the industry these days. In 24/7 supports, there are automated resolutions to some of the things. So there are now the chatbots are now been it's and been advanced as in the AI agents now. So they can what agents can do is it's certain more than what a chatbot do, right? In the case of agent, they can take certain human actions like if there is a customer support, they can the agent can read the problem, and if it requires some resolution, they can create a ticket or create a or take some kind of action of calling to the concerned person and connecting the call with them, right? So all these uh, where the action based thing, they can be taken care by the AI agent in this case. So so these are the mostly broadly the use cases in the payment orchestration industry where AI/ML can be used. So now the challenge is what we can, or what are the challenges in this industry when we use this? Because it is a payment industry, then we have a very strict standards like PSP, CIDSS and all. So uh, so data, when you train a model, there is a possibility of leakage of data. When and these AI model, when trained, they need a huge infrastructure, which is definitely not. Uh, this is not the uh, on-prem on-premise infrastructure. It has to go to certain cloud or something where they will be running on the TPUs or GPUs in that case. So there is a chance of data leakage and something. So there we need to comply with all the guidelines like GDPR, so that we can prevent the leakage of the personal information, and PCI DSS, so that the card data can be stored or can be utilized only in the sensible way, right? Now the next problem is the explainability of the model. Like if we go these models, when as a as this model gains the accuracy is a parameter. When the accuracy increases, the complexity of the model is also increasing. And at the same time, uh, when the model complexity increase, its explainability get compromised, right? When it it will give you a very accurate output, but at the till the time it is correct, it is very good. But when it gives you the wrong output out of the model, then we don't have the explanation because the very high complexity of this model. So there is always a trade-off between the model accuracy and the model explainability. So this is one of the main reason also for the adaptability of the AI ML into the enterprise grade systems uh, a wrong decision uh, could cause a very high loss to the business, or it could cause a threat to our life in that case. So adoption of these models is based on, so sure is it, that's why they have to take a very uh, they have to take a huge care regarding taking adopting these models, and that's why it is very slow in adoption in this mission critical uh, enterprise systems. So bias and fairness is the next thing, right? So if we check uh, there is a good example of this, like Amazon was they've used this for the recruitment system, and after some time they realize that that model is predict straight out rejecting some of the candidates, which is creating a bias, right? That is because the data provided to that model was very skewed under that region also. So within that region, that was the case. And uh, when model then don't get trained on the wide variety of data, uh, actually contains all the variabilities in the sufficient amount of scale, and then the bias could produce a biased out model can produce a biased output. So to get the fairness out of it, then it is recommended to uh, have the training data to be uh, spread across various features, and with the proper uh, with the proper amount of data that supports each of the features, so that it won't create a bias against that specific feature. So, and to mitigate this, there are different feature engineering tasks. Uh, feature engineering task can be done, right? So where these models, the data can be skewed. Then if the feature is not important, then we can completely drop that. Otherwise, if we are able to produce more data supporting that feature so that it reduces the bias, then we have to take the sufficient amount of data to train these models. Scalability and the performance of these models, like the challenge with the AI ML is to increase the transaction volume efficiently. So when you do this in the scale, then there is a challenge that how this because the size of when you train it, there are different challenge, like in the compute power plus the storage of these model. These models become heavy by the time if and then as the features and if features get increased, and but for the performance we need to have those features, so that is a trade-off again. Then we so, so while training and making it scalable, we need to take care on that. And integration, right? So integrations are mostly the AML are done within the payment structure. So there is a complexity that these models will be residing on a different infrastructure. We need to have create certain valid endpoints so that we can get the predicted result in the real time to the payment orchestration systems. So this is how these challenges we can face in this industry, and we can mitigate those. So now let's move to the next part of the presentation. It is about the uh, it is about how the conversion rate and the dropout rates are important for this industry, right? So in the recent studies, it has been found that if the 42% of the e-commerce customers are likely to abandon their cart if the payment is declined. So if the payment declines, 42% of the customers, they straight away drop off, and they don't retry for the payment, right? So which is a very huge loss to the business, right? There is another study says that if the 20% of the card user will stop using the card altogether if the transaction is declined twice a month, twice in a 6 month for them. So they will lose the confidence, or there is some certain uh, emotional uh, emotional feature that is attached to this type of payment, right? If the card is getting declined, it is so the customer, they used to drop out, change that card, or they will not use it. So there is how do these things can be mitigated in the industry uh, to have a better conversion. So companies are leveraging on these dynamic routing systems, which are based on the ML models, and they are helping to increase the conversion rate. So fact is around 12% of the conversion rate improvement has been seen in the industry. Oh, and there is one more fact that is, if even if we tried, even if we increase only by the conversion rate by 5%, it boosts the company's revenue by around 25 to 29%, which is a significant profit for the business. So like this, it is. So this shows that how the conversion rate it is important, right? So what is conversion rate? So conversion rate is out of the payment attempt, how many payment attempts are successful. So out of say 1,000 customer making payment, 9,000 get successful. So 90% is the conversion rate. And dropout is the how is the scenarios where transaction got initiated but not completed. So this includes the transactions which are actually initiated, but it could be the case that customer itself dropped out, or it could be dropped out due to the non-availability of the payment service provider, or the card decline, or there is some technical error in the system. So this is called the dropout rate. So where we will be focusing in this use case is, we'll only focus on the scenarios where the PSP is not available, right? So that is the scenario where the PSPs are not available or temporarily down for some time. There is some scenarios where there is some kind of technical error or some network problem has occurred. Those two are the cases where user is not involved, but user was trying to make a payment, and due to the platform it has been declined. So these can be the so there are different method where it can be used to mitigate these problems. So one is the redundancy, like for the same route for the payment, you will keep the multiple payment processors available, and in case of failure, you can switch to the different one. So that is one of the way. But this is, in this case, the time of processing will become more for the customer, right? Because it first is goes to the one PSP, and if it is failing, then it goes to the another PSP, which takes the time. And if there are certain uh, user presence required, then it won't work. Another way is to optimization of the payment method. So in this case, the ML models can be used to predict and avoid the potential dropout. So using the previous uh, previous past data, they will predict the route which will have the high probability of the success. In this case. So this is how this is in this case the intelligent routing, which is based on ML model will work. Right. So this is that. So let there is a small demo that I have prepared based on how to understand this concept better, and there will be different. These are the steps, right? We will take around 1 million transaction data that will have the transaction amount, payment method which the user is trying to use, customer's location, in which region that customer is, and time of day, at what time of day the customer is trying to make the payment. And there will be the different three, for example, we have three different routes available for processing the payment. So the purpose of this demonstration is to use the ML model to predict the correct route based on the past training data, and which will then help us increase the success rate and reduce the dropout, which will in turn increase the revenue for the business. And uh, uh, the cost could be varying based on the selected route. So to make it very real, right? In the real time scenario, we cannot say that uh, it is not fixed that route one or PSP1 is available in the morning, but it is not available in the evening. It will be the static one, static the static way to design a data. But what we have done is we introduced the random disruption to simulate the real world challenge in this process. So when we are generating that process, we have introduced some random service disruption into it so that it simulates the real time scenario. Then there will be a small simple rule based routing for simulation where we will where these transaction will be processed, and which the static routes that is defined by the static rules will be is used. And the next step, we will do the training of this data using the random forest model. This model, it will be trained on this generated data with the service disruption, and it will learn this pattern, and based on it, it will be able to produce the or predict the route that can be best for the given transaction in the real time. And this model will be trained, right? And we will be focusing on the uh, three metrics here, that is a success rate, the revenue earned on this transaction, and the cost that is incurred while processing the payments through these payment providers, right? So okay. And so here that is a code for our demo, right? So we have generated a number of rows with there are different three payment method that is being selected, like a credit card, debit card, and the PayPal. These are three payment method. User could be from US, EU, or the APAC region, and the time of day could be morning, afternoon, evening, or night. So this is for the demo purpose. These. Uh, I've taken this type of classification for the time, right? In the real time, it will be a complete timestamp, and based on that timestamp, that the model will learn actual thing. But for the simplicity of this demo, I have divided this data into the day into the 4 parts. Right? Using this is the simple static route, right? If the payment is credit card and the location is US, then go through the route A. Otherwise, if the payment is PayPal and time of day is morning and afternoon, go through the route B. So these are, and else it will go through the route C. So these are different static rule. So you can see then if the route B is not available in the morning or afternoon, this payment is going to fail. And if it is only this route, if the user is not from US, this route will not be selected. So these are all the static rules. And for that, we have the success rates uh, for these route to introduce the real time scenario. Now, when we have generated this data, and we have also introduced some downtime here, like on this day when we are trying to train this model or generated data is at that time the route A has the 0.02 percentage of service 2 percentage of the service disruption possibility, and route B has 3% and route C has a 5% of the disruption possibility. So considering this, we have generated the output by applying these rules on the data, and we have now for the cost calculation, the route, every route has a different cost associated with it, right? So if this has a very least disruption possibility, but this has a higher cost. In that term also, the route B has 3%, but it has the second highest cost. So we have I made the assumption that if the route is very highly available and uh, up all the time, it will be, and they will be charging much higher cost for processing the payment because they are providing a very good uh, success rate there. So this is how we have generated. Now we have trained our model. That's a random forest model, the classifier. So this is what we have used, and we have trained it on this model. And while we run, we have calculated the different parameters of success rate and all. So if we have see now, this is the output of that data. So if we see that with the rule-based model, we got 82% of the success rate, whereas we got this much revenue, and there is the cost to process this transaction. The same thing when we have trained this model and we have applied this with the ML model, we have achieved the 95%, more than 95% of the success rate with the greater revenue. The revenue is more than that because the success rate is high, and with the same cost. So this is how it proves that using the AML based model, we can utilize this model and apply this to the routing to get uh, a better conversion for this. Right. So then that is how we can conclude on this part that AIML based routing provide a better alternative for the traditional route based rule based routing, right? So we can achieve the higher success rate, increased revenue for the business, and with that the customers will be more satisfied on the platform, and there will always be benefit to the business in this. So yeah, so this concludes my presentation here, and this is my LinkedIn profile. If you have any feedback or queries regarding this, you can always connect with me, and I'll be able to help you on this part.
Okay. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you. I really liked the detailed presentation, and I had this question from the very beginning of the presentation in mind, that how AI ML driven payment organization or sorry, orchestration is much better than the rule based like payment gateways, right? But you
Yep.
answered it pretty well with the examples. So one thing is that when the real time data changes, like I have a question, like if you permit, I proceed with that.
Yep, sure.
So one thing is that when it comes to the real time data changes, let's say that here payment gateway outages happens, right? It happens very frequently, and we see that payment gateways usually they disable the particular option. So I'm expecting that there is some AI ML behind that, but if the data changes, so how they determine that, okay, this is the data now changes, so we have to act like that, like
So
we have
here,
to payment gateway or we have to disable a payment type.
okay, so when certain payment gateway fails, it start failing, and based on so how the ML model helps here is it will try to ML models can try to they will derive the pattern of the transactions through that route, right?
Hmm.
That is where that means that the payment gateway one, when in the since last past 1 year or last 2 years, what was the behavior of that payment gateway, and using that it will in the real time it can detect whether this is the right time to route this transaction to this gateway or not. And if it is, if the model says that it is the high likely of failure of this transaction because this payment gateway in the past has failed certain percentage of time, so that why they will it will be routed to the another one, or that payment method itself is not presented to the customer during that period intelligently in the real time.
Okay, 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 okay. Another one is that if we basically have some rules. Let's say that I want people in the rule based code. You showed me that we have a static rule that in the evening we have to use this payment gateway, and in the morning we have to use that
Yep.
based on the location, based on the timings, right? So when we do combine all of these, then we will be left with very few payment options. Let's say if in the night I only have two payment gateways and one of them is down, the most primary one, and now the website is showing that this payment gateway is down. So we try the other one, and the user do not have it. So uh, though you showed me the actual results that it improves the revenue, it improves the success rate, but don't you think that it leaves with the very few options at the end?
No,
Like
so
if
this is just a demonstration, right? We have taken only three route, and we had in the real situation we have a multiple. It's a it's a list of huge list of the payment service provider which has been provided by. So that is the redundancy case, right? You need to have the redundancy plus apply the intelligent routing over that, so that you can choose to the best one in one go, right? If the transaction fails, it uh, hampers the emotion of the customer, and that may lead to the dropout of that customer from the payment. So what benefit we get is it is not that we will only have a limited one, two, or three payment gateway in the real time. In the real time, you will have a multiple payment gateway or payment options available for the customer, but to or route to which lead to the high success rate is important, and that's where the ML models can help us.
Okay. Okay. Another question is that in India, though most of the people pay via UPI these days, and almost every UPI charges the same to the merchant, right?
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter much that if a user is paying using which bank account or which UPI agent or anything, right? But when it
Right.
comes to the other nations, there are people prefer the cards much, debit cards or credit cards, or maybe the bank transfer, PayPal, etc. Right? And every payment gateway have different charges. So let's say as a merchant or as a e-commerce website, if uh, the payment gateway is if a particular payment gateway which charges less commission, less in between is
Hmm.
down, and
Yeah.
the one who charges more is up, right? So it is going to cost me much more. Instead of
Right.
saying that okay, this payment gateway is down and please try again later, that helps. There might be the case that the user will make the purchase later, but I'll get the more money at the end, right? So how do we decide like and how this is beneficial in terms when it comes to increase the overall revenue?
Yeah. So overall revenue, it's there is also uh, like I said that the conversion rate, right? If the dropouts of a transaction costs more to the company than processing the transaction to a costly processor, right? If it is, companies will prefer to route that transaction to a costly processor uh, if the cheaper processors are down. So because they don't want to lose the customer at the payment point. So that is more important for the company because that leads to, as I showed in the facts slide, right? Even if the slight conversion like 5% increase in the conversion rate could lead to the 25 to the 45% increase in revenue because it increases the customer satisfaction when because of the better user experience what user has got with the seamless payment.
Okay, okay. So that summed up to that if we want to increase the revenue, then we should focus on closing the purchase rather than the
Yeah,
revenue share with the payment gateway.
right.
That's
That's right.
data and the fact. Okay, got it. Another last question is just one more question is that what key metrics we use like to analyze all of these things, like to improve our AI ML model, which we are implementing in orchestration. So we have to keep monitoring few metrics, right? So what are those key metrics?
So if you're asking about the metrics for the model, then there are that's the accuracy and then there is a F1 score that is been important for a model performance point of view. But if you see in the particularly in the use case of the payment orchestration, after applying these models, what is the success rate and the revenue and the cost of processing is there for these use cases is important.
Okay. That were my questions. And if anybody else have questions or if somebody asks the question in the chat, so Gajendra, you can read that out here.
Yeah, hi Gaurav. It was a very
Right.
detailed presentation. I was just going through some comments, but I think these are not questions but comments like challenges of using AI ML. That's very vague. Anyway, whatever topic, like you have summarized everything, the methodologies used and the challenges and everything. So particularly, I do not have any questions right now. Gajender, would you like to have any question if there is in your mind or any other question that learners have submitted already?
Uh, yeah, there are a few questions that the learners have submitted, but unfortunately, I think we are out of time. Our other guest has been waiting for a bit. And I think, Gaurav, thank you for your presentation. It's been a pleasure. It was very detailed, very nice. And thank you for
Okay.
coming and taking out your time and helping our viewers learn something new.
Okay. Thank you. If you have learned something, then definitely share with me through LinkedIn. I'll be happy to read out. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
definitely. I have
thanks,
shared
CloudX,
Gaurav's,
for inviting me.
yeah, Gaurav, I have
Thanks.
shared your LinkedIn profile on our social media handles as well. So I am requesting learners to connect with him, post your question. If you have forgotten to post your question right away, you can connect him and DM him personally there. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for coming.
Gaurav.
All right. There was a great session from Gaurav. For our next speaker, we have Dr. Mehreen Alam. She's dedicated to democratizing access to AI and envisions a world where language is not a barrier. As a strong proponent of disrupting traditional business methods to enhance their impact on a larger scale, Dr. Alam has been at the forefront of addressing today's most pressing challenges. Her strong academic and research background has empowered her to tackle issues such as hallucinations, deepfakes, voice bots for mental health, amongst many other issues the world faces. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed speaker, Dr. Mehreen Alam. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Gajendra, for the nice introduction. Thank you so much, CloudX, for giving me opportunity to be on this Tech Week. I've been following your talks. They've been really, really insightful and informative, and they've definitely done a part in helping us connect to the ecosystem and helping us learn and grow together. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay. So today I'll be speaking on the topic of bots and language processing. In specific, I'll be speaking about chatbots that have been powered by the LLMs and how they've completely disrupted the way we've been doing everything in our lives. So I'm Dr. Mehreen Alam, and I'm Assistant Professor at FAST National University, Islamabad campus, Pakistan. And I'm also founder and lead scientist of my company, UrduX. Okay, so I vision to democratize access to AI. And as the name of my company suggests, I am more inclined towards use of languages. So Urdu is the national language of Pakistan, where I belong. And I believe that language should not be a barrier in times of today. So I am a strong proponent of disrupting the traditional business methods. And I really want to put my effort into enhancing the impact on a larger scale. I am actually academic and so I have a strong academic and research background, and I've been on the forefront of solving many challenges of today, as Jinder has introduced as well, including but not limited to hallucinations, deepfakes, voice bots for mental health, for domestic violence, for restaurant order, and then also checking for whether a given piece of information has been generated by a bot or a human, and issues on fairness, bias, and use of language that is safe to use. On the entrepreneurial side, I am founder of UrduX, that is focused on the NLP, artificial intelligence, and deep learning. Okay, so just a glimpse of some of the AI ML projects that we've been doing. One is hallucination, which probably we know that LLMs are, it's a side effect of using these large language models, that when they are not clear or when they're not prompted in the in a fixed pattern or in a identifiable pattern, then they tend to hallucinate. They tend to cook information for themselves. So that's something that we need to figure out when we are actually using AI to solve our problems. I was following yesterday's talk from, I guess, Arpit, and he talked about robust AI, and he really highlighted the issues of how we see AI make, we hear in the news or we hear about how AI has changed, for example, healthcare industry, or for example, it has changed this customer care industry. But on ground, there are so many issues of putting into production that still we are yet to see it completely take over some of the tasks that humans do. We also do deepfake detection, and we also work on the explainability of why a certain audio piece or video is actually a deepfake. Then we've put a lot of time and energies into chatbots, so which is how the whole presentation is here today. We've also worked on biases, and we've been advocating and trying to build systems and promoting systems that are free of bias. So having a bias because of somebody belongs to a particular gender, particular demographics, or particular age, or particular educational background. So all of these things should not be a barrier when you apply to, let's say, a university, or you apply for a job, or just as simple as getting a ticket to watch a movie. That's again on, it's a multimodal thing that we are working on. Then we also have a human versus AI detector. So that really comes in very handy when we are actually detecting a piece of writing in the academics. It could be a student has written it, or an AI has written it, or a piece of code to check if it was not generated by a bot. Then we have advanced bots that I'll be focusing more on today. Then we also, using the power of AI and LLMs, we also do automated dubbing. So for a video which could be uploaded on YouTube or any other platform, it can be, we have multimodal models, multilingual multimodal models that can actually transform from one language to the other language. So for now, we focused on major languages that includes Urdu, Turkish, Hindi, Arabic, and European languages, along with English and Chinese. But we plan to expand it to other languages, other dialects as well. Then for the user's point of view, we also want to use AI and natural language processing to automatically translate our text to an SQL query generation. That actually comes in handy when we're accessing the databases. Then some of the apps or the ideas are generated considering in mind the young generation that really wants to use the power of internet and AI to learn and to upskill themselves. So we have planned education apps for different subjects, which are not limited to the ones that I have mentioned. Then we also work on developing platforms where you have an online tutorial platform where the students and the teachers, they can come together and they can choose for themselves the subjects they want to study or the teacher they want to study from, depending on the profile of the teacher, as well as the payment that the student can do and the time that they can spend. Similarly, for summers, when the summer comes, then a lot of kids, the parents want to keep themselves engaged, and a lot of teachers are also available. So we also have a platform where you can actually look for small activities near your geographical area or online as well that is not bound by any geographical area. So you can look for, let's say, origami class that is happening in, let's say, in US, and be part of it. So this is some of the introduction of the projects that we are doing at UrduX. So UrduX and Chatbots, they've been together for a long time. So back in 2017, 2018, this is the chatbot that we developed. So that was pre-LLM and probably pre-transformer era, where we used LSTMs, and we tried different rule-based and phrase-based methods, and then we moved on to neural networks-based methods, and then we used the models of encoder, decoder, and attention-based mechanisms, and this was what we used to do. So there was really challenging coming up with a chatbot that was quick, that was responsive, that would understand what you're trying to ask, that would understand the variety of questions that you would ask for the same thing. So, and then formulating a sentence was also a big challenge in that time. So in that time is like 6 years back. It's not like 6 decades back. So that was a big challenge of finding the intent of the question and then answering it. And then it had a lot of language problems. It had a lot of facts problems. And then there was no way that we could, we got really stuck with the performance, efficiency, scalability of our chatbots. Thanks to the power or the revolution of LLMs and the transformers and the way technology has evolved, we have actually been able to cover a lot of things. For example, the conversational part is something we don't need to really worry when it comes to using the large language models, because they are, like the name suggests, they are language models, which means they understand what language is, and they are large. So they are, I call the word, they are beastly, because they have consumed so much of information and so much of language that probably it's very hard for a human to read that much in lifetime and to also retain that in his or her lifetime. So we have actually, this has really helped us do many things that would not have been possible had we not been able to use the power of these LLMs. So we use variety of LLMs. So they are open source, and they are a closed source as well. Some we do by payment, some we just have it on our systems and we fine tune them. So this has been a big revolution in using the chatbots. So this has also helped us to not only have text-based chatbots. This has very conveniently, I will not say too easily, but very conveniently helped us move from a single mode of text to voice-based bots. And for now, we are easily incorporating 2D and 3D avatars into our systems as well, and we are developing chatbots. So you can see one example of avatar voice and text enabled chatbot, and I'll give you a glimpse of how it you can actually use it to. Actually, you can also hear it. Sorry, I think. Okay, just give me a second. I'll just. Okay, so actually I used two systems, one for the mic and one for the speaker.
Yeah, I was about to mention that probably you are using for your phone voice and you are showing it on your desktop or something.
But you could not hear it? The voice could not be heard?
No, it was not audible to me at least.
Okay. Okay, but okay. Probably
But
we
we
can
can
just move
understand.
on, but you got it.
Definitely.
But
Yeah.
but you got an idea that it's not only what you can speak, but it's also what you can actually what you can hear. It's also about what you can speak.
Right.
And with these large language models and with the multilingual, multimodal support, you can actually speak in multiple languages. And for now, we're not open to multiple languages, but many languages, predefined languages, because we have not tested it on many languages, but on predefined languages. And you can even use different dialects of particular languages, and you can even train your own systems or fine tune your own systems onto the local dialects. So we know that if it's a Punjabi, then Punjabi on Indian side has a little different dialect than Punjabi on on Punjab side in Pakistan, and even in Punjab in Pakistan we see many dialects. In the north is totally different, and as we move towards south, then the dialect is very very different. So you can have it tailored to a particular geographical area or a particular segment. So that was an overview of how what UrduX is doing and the way chatbots have evolved. And now I will give a brief introduction of chatbots and LLMs together, and then I'll give you scenarios by which LLMs have powered chatbots and they have been able to use real life problems. I've listed 4 scenarios. Some are business problems, some are just social problems that can be solved by using the amalgamation of both the two technologies. And that is not all. You can actually use it in any scenario that you can think of. Then I'll talk about the challenges in this landscape, and finally what the future holds for both the technologies being used together. Okay, so probably you can see on the top, I got this from Google Trends, and you can see that the use of chatbots and LLMs has been on the rise. I must say this is post ChatGPT era when it was the access to LLMs was actually democratized. So that's where the boom of chatbots, and you were making those small GPTs, and we have so many services available that are using your customized chatbot. So for now, if I'm not wrong, then almost every website or a service on social media platforms, they have a chatbot of their own. However, these are usually menu-based chatbots, or they just cater to specific type of questions, and they immediately you realize that it's not actually a bot, or it's just a listing of the things or the issues that you want to convey. So this is definitely different from the voice assistants that we have been used to of using, and we still use them, like Alexa and Siri. They also have some predefined tasks, or they have a limited scope of doing the things. And same for these large language models that are available for us, like Gemini and ChatGPT and many more. So they are more conversational. They are less prone to making language mistakes. But when it comes to solving a problem, then they are too generic. Probably we always need to fine tune them or tailor them according to the specific business case or use case that we want to solve. So the first scenario that I have listed is the customer care representative. That's one industry that the chatbots have really have been used in this too. to enhance the productivity of the businesses. So in traditional systems, if you were to make a call to report or just to inquire, then you will have to wait in long queues, and you will have to wait for many minutes, which sometimes may lead to you leaving the call altogether, because probably your issue was not worth the wait. And if it is worth the wait, then by the time you get the call, you're definitely frustrated, and probably you might tend to become rude to the representative, and so that definitely is not a healthy or sign to be in. So that's definitely a problem that can be solved by the availability of those chatbots. Then again, we have off-peak and on-peak hours. They also have an impact. So if a lot of people are calling at this, at a particular time, then availability is different. And then the number of reps they keep for off-peak hours is also, so probably you might not be getting services 24/7. So usually in the predefined, in these traditional customer care representatives, there's an automatic, so there's an automated voice that tells if it's this problem, press 1, if this problem, press 2. So usually it's a predefined menu or the list of options that you have to choose from. And if you have to speak to the representative, then you have to go for example, you have to press 0. However, now that you have the luxury of using these chatbots that are powered by LLMs, then you can take, theoretically speaking, you can take unlimited calls. Of course, on ground, it can't be like that, but the scale of your taking the calls can become multifold. And then you have a 24/7 availability. And it is, your service is bound to be always consistent. So it's not dependent upon human bias. It's not dependent upon, the mood the rep is in, or since chatbots or these LLM-powered ML systems or AI systems, they are not, they don't have emotions. So they are not reactive in the terms of, generally speaking, in terms if you're rude to them or if you say anything offensive to them. So you can always train them and harden them so they can always have a consistent customer care language that is spoken. Then you can always tailor them to have no bias. So somebody who's of, for example, a senior citizen might take some time to convey their problem and also to understand the resolution of the problem. So a human might lose patience, but these bots, they can be patient for all age groups, and will not, generally speaking, if we train them well, then they will not have bias. Just because you are a teenager, you have to be treated in a certain way, and if you are a senior citizen, you have to be treated in a certain way. If you're a man, then it's a different, treatment is different. If it's a woman, it's a different. So you can always give a uniform view to your customers. Then you can always have because it's a power of data. So when a customer calls, you can always have, it's possible that you know where the customer is calling from, the geographical area the customer is calling from, or when the customer talks. And in future, when you see the customer, if it's a live video that is happening, then you can, depending upon how the customer looks like or the tone, you can actually detect the age of the customer, the background that the customer is coming from, probably the geographical location the customer is coming from, and you can tailor your dialect and your response according to them. So and you can also embed the concept of sentiment analysis into your bots, and that's there. So if you feel that a customer is getting frustrated or angry, then you can always use different ways, like predefined ways. You can feed your chatbots that if you feel that the customer is feeling frustrated or angry, then probably you could handle this is option 1, option 2, option 3, that's something. And if these options don't work or they work, then you can always further work upon the analysis of the data. And you can actually further improve your systems depending upon how your first level of options went, and then you can always improve upon the next levels. Then, for example, the churn rate can be predictive. And then if you feel that if a certain type of or a background of or the timings, depending upon the data analytics that you have done, then you can always predict that the person who's coming at this time or at this background or after these many repeated complaints is bound to behave in a certain scenario. So you can actually give a proactive support to the person, so that might lead to happy customers and definitely will lead to a boost in the business. Okay, the second scenario is the restaurant order placement. So I envision a world where even if you're there in the restaurant, you'll be giving your order to a bot, like it's you can see in the image. But probably we are too, in my opinion, we're a little far, far from that point. For now, I'm confining the restaurant order to automatically taking it on the phone. So traditionally, when we make calls, all of us, we make calls or to place some order. Then again, if it's a peak hour, then it's definitely the service is going to be different, because there's a lot of backlog and there's a lot of calls that they need to take, and then that might also affect the way you are communicating to the customers. And then, like I mentioned, somewhere you may want a uniform treatment, but at some time you may want a specialized or personalized treatment. So if it's for example, somebody is coming from Gen Z, then you might want to use, and if you have it on the order, not like you just cook it up yourself, but if you actually have it on the order, then you use the language that is appropriate or that syncs with the Gen Zs. For example, it's all grass fed or it's organic. Just to give you an example. So this will definitely enhance the user experience, and they'll be more involved more involved in your system, and they'll be able to you'll be able to identify what they want to order, and probably end up ordering more than they would want to order. So and then this order placement is definitely limited to the number of hours that the restaurant operates. So you can always have a 24/7 service, although your kitchen may not be operating, but you can always take the orders and you can have them delivered or picked up in your office in your working hours. So as user experience is definitely very natural. You speak to a bot and you don't even know you're speaking to a bot. So it's so seamless and natural and intuitive. And then most importantly, it's like a hands-free thing. You don't really have to download an app and choose your menus and select, okay, I need to choose 2 burgers, and this is for the next side orders. Probably I need to go to the next screen and then extra toppings. So all of this probably annoys us in some way or the other. So this is definitely a big enhancement. You do a hands-free thing, and you're definitely able to avoid long queues. So it's a standard treatment that's given. Like I mentioned, certain ways is standardized and certain ways is personalized. So easy cancellations, it's all there. You need to modify an order. A bot is doing it for you. So there's no human who gets frustrated. Oh, I told you this, or there's no level of frustration if you have to repeat it or ask the question again and again from the bot. And then again, you can use the power of data analytics, which falls in the umbrella of AI, to do your analysis of how your chatbot has done. And then you can analyze it, and you can always add insights, and you can adapt your chatbots according to your particular needs. So the third one is a social problem. So not the way I see AI in everything that I see. So I also see AI when I see my grandmother, who is old and who always needs a person to speak to, and probably we are too busy to give her that much of time because the questions are repeated, the comments are repeated, and so that would be wonderful if, I plan to, in some point in time, make an app for the elderly people who can just converse with them and probably have an avatar of someone that they can relate to, any of their daughters, and they can, change the avatars or the pictures and the voices and the dialects, and that will definitely keep them happy and engaged. And like people like us who have to work, we will not also feel guilty by because we cannot give that much time, or we don't have that much patience to attend to our elders. So that will be a good way of, it's like a win-win situation. Okay, so the third scenario that I've chosen is for the domestic violence help part. It's a topic that's it's a cause that is very dear to me, and it's a taboo in generically speaking. It's something that people don't talk about, or people are okay with it. And stats, they say that in my country, in Pakistan, we have 90% of women who are part of emotional domestic violence, and there are more than 50% of women who are actually the recipient of the physical domestic violence. And it is so embedded into our society, and the society is the patriarchal society, that hardly 1 or 2% of the violence is detected, and only when it has actually crossed its limit. So it's not only, and once I started working in this area, I realized that it's not only related to women, it's elderly people who are in the homes, it's the children, and it's also the special kids or special people who are in the homes. They are also recipient of mental and physical domestic violence. So I don't recall in my people around me making a call to a person or a helpline just to get information. So either they go to online to visit sources and improve the understanding, or they go for a legal help, which is of course very expensive and probably not very easy and convenient to do. So if you have a domestic, we're working on it. So if you have a domestic violence help part, for now, we just have it on the text-based. So it is excellent if you just want to create awareness. So if I want to learn about it, I will just know. I don't really have to be a domestic violence survivor or a recipient of domestic violence to be reading it. I can always read. And at one place, I can get all the information of what domestic violence is. So I'm never speaking to a person, so nobody knows it's me. Otherwise, it's always a fear of judgment. Then there's no number that I leave a trail that this is the number that the lady called from, or this is the geographical area that the lady called from. So usually we have helplines that are actually monitored by the government. So you leave a trail. So if you have a system like this, of course, you can always monitor and you can always keep a trail, but that is not in a law enforcing agencies, just a platform, and we can always choose to not save the data. And if we choose to save the data, then obviously we will explicitly mention in our terms and condition. So this is very important, that you have one place where you get all the information, and that also in a conversational manner. It's not like you're reading an article. So whatever you ask, the bot will keep on clarifying your questions, and will keep on directing you to further information. And then these sort of, for example, if I'm emotionally being victimized, then probably I'm in a state of trauma, and I might ask the same question again and again. And then a person talking or responding to me might get offended or might give up. But if I'm speaking or I'm getting information from the bot, then the bot they are wonderful at doing the repetitive task. And then for the reporting and help, definitely it's hard because it's challenging, and it's, since I mentioned, it's a patriarchal system that we are in. So there are many barriers by which any victim will actually go and report and will seek help. So when we come to these platforms, then like I mentioned, there's no judgment, there's no fear of judgment, there's no, we can always train our bots, unlike the data that, that is there, but we can always train our bots to not do to victim, settle for victim blaming, to be empathetic, and they have a helpful communication, never use any remarks or any words that may be painful or hard for the person who's speaking to. So, and then there is no human connection, like I mentioned. So it's very easy. And then you can always democratize the access, and you can create awareness, and you can give every person in this, like in this world, a method by which they can report. They can first develop an understanding if they are being, victimized, and also, I think on the other side, also the abusers as well. That also an awareness for them, that probably they can check themselves that you've been doing that way. That falls into the category of violence. So maybe it's a self check that you can do. So then you can always, like I mentioned, you can tailor it to the local dialects, and then you can always have it in the local language. If it's a text, then you can always have it in, for example, in Urdu language, you can have it in Punjabi language, or you can have it in European languages, Arabic language, Hindi language. So that local people, the use of language is not a barrier for them. And then the Romanized version will actually make it easier for them to type if you're not going for the voice option. Then if you feel that the bot feels that it's crossed the the line, then you can actually refer them to a professional mental health support, or to a legal or law enforcing agency. Or you can, if you feel that bot, because we always try to put lines to what the bot can do. And for now, there's always a limit to what the bots can do. And instead of misguiding the people, in this case the victims, or the people who want to learn about it, instead of misguiding them, it's better that you direct them to a human support for further information. So the other scenario that I've picked is real estate. So real estate has really it definitely needed a major overhaul, because of the way the frauds were done. The same thing, but multiple options, and the way people were tricked into different payment plans, and then so it was really not transparent. And then despite being a human need, we all feel that it's as a means of safety or as security. We all want to have a piece of land or a home for ourselves. That's very natural. Or probably the part of world that I come from, then it's embedded into our minds then that it's important that you all have a house of your own. That's a security and long-term investment for you, and that's for generations. So putting that onto a chatbot, or putting it onto, let's say, on using the power of tech, that will really revolutionize the way you make the overall system transparent. And also you can't, it opens the whole world for you. So with the power of those maps, you can actually locate every property or land that is available, and you can make connections with those people in those countries or regions or areas, and you can actually, that can open up the whole market for you. So this is super scalable. And like I mentioned, when you cross the boundaries, geographical boundaries, then you always put in the multilingual support and accents as well. Okay, so like everything in the world, and especially with the evolving technologies, there are a lot of challenges that we come across. And the best thing about challenges is that once we know that this is a challenge, we start working on it, and somehow the challenges that were in the past are actually the the luxuries that we enjoy in the present. So I'm very hopeful that the challenges that we all know, and that I'll also be highlighting them today, will actually be luxuries in the future. So there are many challenges, I think, but I've listed just a few, and I've tried to add the challenges into my scenarios as well. So the first is that with humans, there's always an element of emotions. So there's an energy that we get just by being in the presence of a human. So it can be, usually it's encouraging, but sometimes you can, you may not have good feelings, but there's always an emotion that is attached. But I feel that, like, we've trained them on using good language and trained them on specific domains, then tomorrow we will also be able to, make them, like, train them or embed in them the concept of emotions. For now, ethics and bias is a big question. So that's why we have AI safety, we have robust AI, we have ethical AI. So we have so many explainability in AI. So these are all related to best practices that we can do, so that we don't let or use the data. We don't do the jailbreaks for, like, these LLMs. We don't do those cross those security barriers. We don't misuse these technologies. And every system that we make, whether that's for job application or that is for perhaps like I said, getting tickets for a movie, so they are actually not biased at all, depending upon any factor. So that could be the education background the person is coming from, the gender the person has, or the language that the person is speaking. So these biases are present because they are present in our society. So since the data is driven from the society, they are part of the biases are part of the data. So if we know that our data has a specific type of bias, and we don't want to build a system that has bias in it, then we can always take measures like diversifying data, augmenting data. I think yesterday Arpit discussed a lot about it in detail. And we can always train our systems to not to use offensive language that may or also detect offensive language, and to respond in a particular way if a person is using a language that is not acceptable. So then a big issue that we face right now is the multi-turn conversations. So these chatbots powered by LLMs, they are good for a few, good 4, 5, 10, 20 conversations, but they are not able to maintain very good context, and that comes at a cost. So we need to come to systems or build systems where it's easier and cheaper to maintain longer conversations, and to maintain those conversations with the profiles as well. Then I think the last but not least, and the most important and the most challenging, is the natural language understanding. Because every person has a different way of talking. They have different, the dialects. The same person can speak in different ways. The tone can be different. The choice of words that they use is different. So there's so much of variety in natural language. Then understanding in the text is a big problem. Understanding sarcasm, irony, humor. So, and then in images, well, that's not language, but in images, if I'm speaking for multimodal aspect, then audio and video, then definitely having a combined system where all of these modes are combined together, and then understanding that is definitely a challenge. So future, as I've mentioned, is very bright. I see this AI solving every problem. It should be used like wheel, when invented, was used to expedite or to speed up the efficiency. So whether it was an aeroplane or it's a car, we don't reinvent the wheel like we do for the internet or for electricity. I feel that AI is the new electricity. So it's going to really transform everything. It has already, and it will keep on further transforming everything that we do in our lives. So we, in context of chatbots and LLMs, we will be seeing multimodal chatbots. We will be seeing multi-turn conversations. We will see emotional intelligence, and we will see increased personalization that will lead to, let's say, better learners at schools, or a better, like I mentioned, customer care experiences. So this is so future is all AI, and if used in an ethical and safe manner, it is definitely going to do wonders for our society. That's it from my side. Thank you so much. I'm open to any questions or comments.
Hey, hi, Mehreen. I think
Hi.
that descriptions were like already very, the presentations were already very descriptive. So not much questions, just some generic things which people posted with us and they wanted us to ask you. So I will just read out that to you. One thing is that there are already many researches are happening in these things, like the social impact of AI, right? So what kind of guidance would you offer to researchers or professionals who are like keen on leveraging AI for social impact and societal change?
Yes, I think it's important. It happens with every new invention. For example, if I were to give an analogy, when the printing press came, then it was banned in our part of the world for 2 or more centuries, that it's dangerous and it might lead to some chaotic consequences. But ultimately, we had to accept it, and we put up some norms of what is going to be published in the mainstream media, or on the digital media, or on the electronic media. So when a new thing comes, then there's a vacuum that is created. And like I mentioned, if you know the challenges, then step by step, you end up addressing those challenges. So for example, for making safer systems, for making ethical systems, it is important that, first of all, it's a data-driven field, right? First of all, you need to be aware of what could be the challenges. And then if you don't really have to experiment yourself. Like you mentioned yourself, that a lot of research is available, publicly available. So you can read from other people's experiences and understand the challenges. And then first, make sure your data does not have those the issues that you want to address, right? Like I mentioned, for example, bias, or for example, having maybe offensive language, maybe Islamophobic language, or a language that could be offensive for a particular age group or particular religion, particular area. So you need to have systems that are safe and that are comfortable for people to be in. And then you also put it on the models, that you also develop models and tune them or train them in such a way that you are aware that these sort of safety lapses should not occur. For example, like when these LLMs were generated, then once it was put in use, then they realized that they could be made to leak so much of information. So they started putting guardrails. So once it was out there, tested, and depending on the feedback, then the guardrails were put, and now the LLMs, they are careful. Generally speaking, they are careful about not leaking particular set of data. So this is how awareness and learning from other people and experimentation that can lead to safer and ethical AI systems in the world.
Great. I think that was a wonderful response. And I think I'm done with my set of questions. There was a few more questions, but your presentation and your speech basically answered that already. So if any one of you, Gajendra or Gargi, have any more questions, you may proceed with yours.
Right. I have actually. So I would like to proceed with the question that it came to my mind, and I'm very impressed, like, because you're working on something that you are totally passionate about, and you think about the concern. And particularly, my question was to your thought on developing the chatbot for the elderly people per se, and that is a very sensitive topic because elderly people uh, they won't be happy with the avatars, in my understanding, because they want their own child to be there in front of them, and that's what they're missing about. So we will be making some improvements, and you also address the same challenges over the life slides, that these are sensitive matter, and that also ethics and others. So what do you say, like, this is something very early in a days, or probably in the future we would be able, like, elderly people would be able to adapt to chatbots? Because right now I think what I see, especially in India and my hometown, that the elderly people are using just to call. They are not even chatting per se over the phone. So what do you say, like, is it early of the time, or we will be able to have much more large system for this one? Yeah.
Yes, so if I'm like my parents, they are comfortable using social media. They type, they are really tech savvy considering their generation. But if I talk about my grandmother, people who are 80 plus or 90 plus, then we should not expect them to be able to use these devices. All they can probably do is take a call or do a video call. But I think one thing for now that we do, and I do see that problem being solved, is you leave voice note. So if you leave a voice note, let's say, for example, on WhatsApp, you have Meta's AI that's there. So let's say if you leave a voice note, and then you can always have it programmed on the other side, whatever question or whatever an elderly person says, it can be cloned in the voice of whoever they want to communicate with. So if she wants to speak to, let's say, her daughter, then we can have an already cloned voice, or we can. It's not only the avatar that I'm talking about. We can also have a person, and we can do some. There are certain libraries available, although they are not that mature, but we can always work on this so that with the text, with the voice cloned, and with the lip syncing, a little bit of eye movement and the hand movement, you can always create an experience for them. So even if they ask the same question or repeat the same thing, so they will never get bored, and the daughter will always respond in a happy manner. Otherwise, generally, even if the daughter, if you ask her the same question or repeat the same thing twice, thrice, four times, then we are humans. We are bound to probably be rude to our elders, and then we feel guilty about it. So that problem can be addressed. That definitely doesn't mean that we don't give time to our elders. It is just an enhancement or a replacement, or an AI assisting us in making our lives, everybody's lives, easier. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Mehreen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Alam. I do not have any set of questions remaining, seeing that we are over and above the time slot. unfortunately. I would love to hear more about all the social challenges that you're tackling so efficiently. It's been a pleasure hosting you and listening to your talk. And but I will have to now call out for the next speaker, who is the
Thank you.
country head of Lumen Technologies. Right.
Okay. Thank you so
Who
much
has-
for giving me the opportunity. It has been a total pleasure being part of your tech event, and I wish you all the best. I hope we collaborate and come together on further avenues as well. That's it for my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Anand. All right. For our next speaker, let me quickly introduce our next speaker, Mr. Soumitra Saha. He's a seasoned technology and people leader with 23 years of experience in the financial services and telecom sectors. He has rich international exposure in the USA, Canada, and the UK, and excels in strategic and analytical thinking. Soumitra currently leads Lumen Technologies as managing director and country head. Soumitra's specialty includes building GCC organizations, product management, client management, program management, and people management. His expertise extends to financial advisor solutions, CSM, ITIL, and the financial services industry, particularly in brokerage, confirmations, and settlements. He has also held key positions at Northern Trust Corporation, Fidelity Investment, Dell, and Infosys. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed speaker, Soumitra Saha. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone across the world, whoever has joined in. My name is Soumitra, and thank you, Gajendra. That was a wonderful introduction about myself. So I'm really happy that you covered everything. I had put together a slide for myself. I'm going to skip that. Otherwise, people will think that, okay, this is a narcissist speaker who is out here campaigning himself. But thank you, Gajendra.
I think there's a lot more to be covered about your profile, sir, than the one that I have just mentioned. And if you could just share your slide and let
Sure.
us know, that would be great. Thank you.
All right. So first of all, CloudX Lab team, thank you very much for having me here. It's a real pleasure and privilege to be addressing so many people across the globe through your platform. I'm going to talk about adoption of large language models in large corporations, the journey that I have gone through along with my organization, some challenges faced, and what we have accomplished so far. Okay. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and proceed. Let me know if you can see my screen.
It is visible.
Okay, I'm using Zoom, so I'm not so familiar with it. What do you see on the first slide out there?
I
Because
see the journey of LLM adoption.
okay, great. Because I don't get a preview over here. I don't know for what reason.
So if you are on a MacBook, I think it runs in the full screen. So
Oh, okay. Can the view be changed?
yeah, you can, I think, use the escape button to exit from the full screen, or maybe use the three finger swipe to switch between screens.
Let me see. Okay, I can see a preview over here. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I will move on. So Gajendra already covered this. I'm not going to talk about this, but essentially, uh, today we are going to talk about the LLM adoption in large companies, and the way I'm going to narrate the story is think about mountaineering, think about scaling a new mountain, think about expedition. So the first thing that you do is to prepare yourself, right? To prepare yourself and the set of people that you're going to take along with you to the base camp. Once we arrive at the base camp, there are certain things that you need to do. And then from the base camp, you start scaling up. And the journey becomes more and more steeper, more difficult, lot of challenges. You address those challenges and move on. So this is the analogy I'm going to use today for sharing my anecdotes with all of you in terms of LLM adoption in a large company like Lumen. So at Lumen Technologies, my role is I'm the managing director and country head for Lumen India. And as part of that, I am responsible for making sure that we are able to establish Lumen in India as a strong brand, make sure that we are able to deliver true value to our parent customer back in Colorado, and really build up some good niche capabilities over here. Lumen is a telco company based out of Colorado in the US. We are close to 25,000 employees globally, and we serve a lot of our customers back in North America. It's important for you to understand the background of the company before I jump onto the LLM adoption. It's a telco company, and a traditional telco company which is right now undergoing a massive transformation. And this transformation is not just the digital transformation that all companies are going through, but we are truly creating the backbone, leveraging AI for the network infrastructure in United States. And almost 60% of that technology work is happening from India. That gives me a lot of pride and honor in thinking that sitting here in India, 20,000 miles away from the parent organization, we are able to create value through substantial software creation, leveraging next-gen technology. We are at the cusp of creating history, leveraging network for our customers. What do? We provide long-haul services. We provide broadband connections. We provide managed services, security services, SASE, and edge computing activities for our international, domestic, and enterprise clients. I'm not sure if you have followed Lumen Technologies in the past, but of late, we have been creating quite some waves in the industry through our collaboration with multiple stakeholders in the industry, all underpinning the principle of AI. Now, AI, the way I look at it is the new wheel of revolution for the humankind. One of the most advanced and promising applications of artificial intelligence is the generation of natural language texts and outputs, such as documents, summaries, translations, or captions based on various inputs, such as data, keywords, images, audio, even video. Now, these applications are powered by large language models. That's essentially the core of our topic today. Now, these LLMs are neural networks that learn from massive amounts of text data and produce coherent and diverse text on demand. Now, depending on the need of the organization, the way I look at this is, from a LLM standpoint, there are two segments of communities across the world. One is the producers, the ones who really create this LLMs, and the others are the consumers. I belong to the consumer segment. Lumen Technologies belongs to the consumer segment. It's not our core business to create LLMs, but how do we leverage existing LLMs for the benefit of our clients and expanding the AI backbone and the AI economy for the network? Now, with that being said, I want to just call out a very key fundamental thing over here. Your adoption of LLM really depends on the business needs that you have, depends on the training objectives that you have. So essentially, there are three categories of LLMs that are present on the planet, right? You have auto-regressive LLMs, you have auto-encoding LLMs, and you have hybrid models. Now, typically, most companies go with the hybrid model because that gives you the best of both worlds. Now, from a overall LLM standpoint, many companies have now developed these large-scale language models that can generate natural language from any input and understand natural language from any output. Now, these LLMs are used to generate coherent and fluent texts on various topics, domains, given some initial prompts or keywords. These LLMs, they have several advantages over the current set of applications that we have, and that makes them perfect from a Gen AI standpoint. First, they can leverage the vast and diverse knowledge and information that is encoded in natural language, which is the most common and accessible form of human communication and expression. Secondly, they can handle multiple modalities. For example, non-text inputs, images, audio, or video, and they can convert those into natural language descriptions or captions and vice versa. And third, they can learn from their own generated texts and outputs and improve their performance and generalization over time. Now, with this being the context and Lumen's strong appetite to adopt suitable LLMs from the industry and further the progress of technology from a consumer standpoint, we started this journey way back in November last year. So you can say that compared to others in the industry, we are probably a little naive, but we have made significant progress over the last 6 to 7 months. And that's the story that I want to talk to all of you about right now. Now, to reach the base camp, we had to do 3 distinct things, and I'm going to talk about those. Number one, we had to create our ecosystem which is conducive to the large engineering community that we have. So in India, and I'm talking about the India story, in India, we have roughly 3,000 people working for Lumen. Of the 3,000 people, roughly 2,400 are into technology. Now, you will appreciate when you start leading large organizations that when you introduce a new technology, it takes time for adoption. It takes time for people to be trained. It takes time for them to understand and appreciate. There was an initial fear that, oh, Gen AI, LLMs, they are going to take away our engineering jobs, our programming jobs. But we all need to understand that Gen AI or LLMs need to be considered as an enabler and not necessarily something which is going to replace human beings in the near future. So with that being in the mind, what we did was we investigated, we researched different LLMs that are out there in the industry. We eventually collaborated with Microsoft and adopted Copilot. Now, Copilot comes in 2 distinct flavors. One for the engineering community, that's you can plug it on GitHub and do a lot of things, and that's the story I'm going to talk about. And the other is M365 Copilot, which you can use for your Office suite of applications. You can use that on your Teams meetings or any other meeting for that matter, and create meeting notes, meeting summaries, Q&A, etc. We use a combination of GitHub Copilot and M365 Copilot. Now, what's the first step that we did? We started a campaign across Lumen India, because when you start something new and you have to influence 3,000 people, you just cannot do it overnight. There has to be a lot of thinking that goes in addressing the different types of people and engineers that you have in your organization. Because at the end of the day, you got to make sure that the adoption is high. That is where the greatest benefit lies. So as part of that, we ordered for 600 trial licenses of GitHub Copilot and 200 trial licenses of M365 Copilot. On the GitHub Copilot, I created a GitHub Copilot core engineering team. These are people who have actually spent about a month or so understanding how Copilot works on GitHub. What is prompt engineering? How best can you leverage the power of Copilot when you are an engineer on GitHub? And then we created a set of 25 Copilot champions. So champions are the ones who will learn on the fly and they will influence larger groups, larger divisions, different business units, different groups. Using a combination of the Copilot core team and the Copilot champions, we joined hands with Microsoft and GitHub. I had Microsoft SMEs and GitHub SMEs come over to the Lumen office in Bangalore and conduct sessions. We did collaborative sessions both virtually and in person. And we did close to 10 different sessions, 1,500 plus participants, 5,000 hours of learning. What did we learn over there? We learned GitHub Copilot 101, prompt engineering, Copilot for non-engineers, for example, people on the HR and the finance teams. We did multiple workshops where we opened up GitHub Copilot and did hands-on working sessions. And we also had 2 Ask Me Anything sessions. So with the collaboration of Microsoft and GitHub, the aim was to really educate employers on a mass scale on usage of Copilot on GitHub and M365. The objective was to improve adoption of Copilot for our engineers and non-engineers and drive, number 1, productivity improvement through effective use of Copilot, and number 2, solve for real-life business cases and offer value back to the parent organization. So that was the collaboration that we did with Microsoft and GitHub, the hands-on workshop sessions, and we did a lot of trial and error processes. The next thing that we did was the experiments. Now, what are these experiments that we're talking about? Now, I told you we had 3,000 people to launch and spend money on 3,000 people and 3,000 licenses. We want to make sure that we have selected the right business cases, the right utilities, and we're getting the real benefits from adoption of Copilot. So we started, as part of the campaign, we started a series of experiments. What did we do on the experiments? We identified 300 plus different use cases across Lumen India. So, across the company, there are like, at any given point in time, 4,000, 5,000 projects are going on, right? Large company like ours. $14 billion revenue, so you can imagine the amount of work that happens. We selected a sample of 300 use cases from across these projects. Now, these use cases span across different software languages: Java, .NET Core, Selenium, AngularJS, HTML5, C#, C++, Python, SQL, Oracle, Spring Boot, Java Spring Boot framework, everything put together, right? So 50 plus different languages. We did the experiments in 8 distinct categories. What are those categories? We tried out Copilot on designing an architecture. We tried out code coverage, writing new pieces of code, driving test automation, creating new test automation suites, rewriting existing pieces of code, code documentation, tech debt reduction, which is basically legacy to modern conversions, and checking for overall productivity. Now, we employed more than 500 engineers for a period of about 2 months in driving these experiments. They experimented on all the different 300 plus. Actually, we had 377 use cases to be specific across 8 different business units, 8 different categories, 50 plus different software languages, and we spent about 10 weeks in going through all of these. Now, what did we observe? We saw tremendous results coming out from the usage of GitHub Copilot and M365 Copilot put together. We saw that on an average, when we looked at using Copilot for code coverage improvement, more than 40% code coverage. Hold on a minute, there is a ping here. Yeah. More than 40% improvement of productivity for code coverage. So to write your unit test cases, if it used to take X without Copilot, using Copilot, it was taking 40% lesser time. Tech debt reduction, more than 40%. In terms of design and architecture, anything between 30% and 40%. I'll share some examples. We were able to create API blueprints for several REST API creations with a 35% average improvement in productivity. Test automation, more than 40%. Code documentation, like when a new engineer comes and looks at the code, usually the codes are, the documentation is very poor. But we used Copilot to create documentation for existing pieces of code, and we saw that we gained on an average about 30%, 20 to 30% improvement in that. New code writing, roughly 30%. Code rewrite, roughly 25 to 40%. And overall productivity that we saw was roughly around 30%. This whole thing was done in a span of about 12 weeks. And in this 12 weeks, we found out that 85% of the employees who participated claimed that they had a remarkable improvement in productivity. And of the people who participated, 40% felt that their productivity improved by at least 30%. So this was the base camp activities that we did. Once we achieved substantial results from the usage of this base camp, we want to expand it across the enterprise, not just in India, but in the US also. So I had discussions with my CEO, and she was really excited to see the kind of productivity improvements that we had seen. But my desire was not really to stop just at productivity improvement. My desire was to really leverage the power of Copilot on GitHub and solve for real life business cases. And in the next few slides, I'm going to talk about what are some of those real life use cases that we're working on. But the climb from Basecamp to where we got to the real life business cases was a Herculean task. It was a long journey, a very, very steep journey. And that's what I call as the climb. So now that we are at the base camp, we're going to scale up greater heights. And as you know, for those of you who trek, the climb is always the difficult part. The higher you go, lesser oxygen, lesser resources which are required to sustain the human body, right? So there were several challenges that we faced, and I want to walk you through what we did as an organization to spread GitHub Copilot, drive productivity, and also solve for business cases as part of the climb. Now, the first thing that we did was to really get 2,400 engineering GitHub Copilot licenses. And we made sure that every engineer in the organization has the Copilot in India. The remaining 600 licenses that we got were mostly for M365. We actually got 1,000 for M365 because many engineers also got GitHub Copilot as well as the M365 Copilot licenses. Now, getting the licenses is one thing, but then you have to think, like when it is a company of 3,000 engineers, you have to make sure that the right tools are being used with the right spirit and there is true value coming out. Now, to bring about this mass scale change, Copilot had to be integrated with certain applications. As an example, Copilot had to be integrated with Jira because all our projects are agile driven and they're all running on Jira. Now, for a Scrum team to really find out, okay, if I use Copilot, this is what my effort is going to be looking like. That has to be captured somewhere. Now, for that to happen, Copilot had to be integrated with Jira. The other one was, of course, Copilot was integrated with GitHub, but there had to be a mass scale training and integration across the enterprise. So training and integration with the enterprise suite was the first step that we did. And this took about 2 to 3 weeks. After that, we had to bring about engineering change management. Why change management from an engineering standpoint? Look, we were up for a journey where we wanted every engineer to start leveraging Copilot to the best possible extent. I do want to call out over here that Copilot or any LLM for that matter is useful in certain areas, but it's not useful. It may not be helpful to certain cases. In a large company, you don't have everybody working on Java and .NET and Selenium. There are people who are working on stuff like ServiceNow, Itential, mainframe, a lot of legacy stuff. And understandably so, Copilot doesn't really work on any of these legacy systems. So how do you make sure that your teams are productive? So for that matter, there had to be a change management introduced. What was the change management all about? First one was integration. Next was making sure that all Scrum Masters and all product owners know what we are doing, because we are global teams, right? It cannot happen that in a sprint, half the engineers in India are using Copilot, the other half is not using. Everybody had to use it, had to be integrated, and there has to be a systemic change done in the way we do estimations. So in a normal cycle, in a normal sprint phase, when you do your sprint planning, every engineer would raise their hand, maybe do some t-shirt sizing and say, okay, for this story, I need this many story points. This is my effort estimate. We would do that. We would capture that on Jira. But at the same time, what we would also capture is using Copilot, what was the effort actually used. And that was the change management that was very difficult to bring in across the organization, not just in India, but in the US as well. Because people who haven't used were absolutely averse to it. They were like, oh, we don't have to use this. There is no need to check for productivity. Productivity will improve. And we were like, we have to make sure that there is good measurement. And that's where the third one comes in, the engineering telemetry. So once Jira was integrated, once the processes were set, once we established that sprint planning has to be done this way, we introduced Power BI into the whole mix. We set up a lot of telemetry. We set up telemetry to measure velocity, which was already there, but leveraging Copilot, what it looks like. We introduced telemetry to look at the overall lead time and cycle time of sprints. I want to call it one thing. Why lead time and cycle time telemetry was important? When we did the use cases, those were isolated use cases. But when you talk about a sprint contains a lot of activities, most of them engineering, but there are non-engineering activities as well. There might be analysis work, and Copilot may not really help. There might be story writing work, which Copilot can help with, right? There are product management activities. There are release management activities. So a lot of things goes into an overall sprint. So we need to make sure that even though we had a 30 to 40% improvement in the isolated use cases, when you bring all systems together under one sprint, your velocity and your productivity is going to dip. And that's exactly what we noticed. We saw that even after setting up the engineering telemetry and all the best practices, the overall productivity at a sprint level was roughly between 18% to 20%, which is not bad, actually great. Why is it great? Because it gives me confidence that Copilot is actually being used, number one. We are now able to deliver 20% more stories than we were able to deliver earlier. That's the interpretation. And for me, the way I go back to my CEO and the senior leadership team is, if there's a need to hire 100 people, I'm not going to hire 100 people. Because I've already invested in Copilot on GitHub, there's money going in, I'm going to hire probably 20% or 15% lesser workforce. That will give me a balance in the game, right? So after this, we started something called as Kaizen. Kaizen is a Japanese term which means continuous improvement. So we continued this for the last 6 months. So starting way back in February till right now, we have been continuously improving our processes, our sprint planning exercise, our backlog, prioritization practices, and the way we use Copilot. And we have come to a state where we are now seeing almost a 20% improvement in productivity across the enterprise. Now, while I talk about productivity and I talk about enterprise adoption, we got to make sure that as you're climbing up a hill, there will be avalanches falling down, landslides, large glacier slides, right? So those are avalanches. Now, those are the challenges that came along. Now, I want to come down to reality and talk to you about some of the real life use cases that we solved, some of the business cases that we solved, and what kind of challenges we faced. So the first one I want to talk about is in terms of architecture. Now, one of my architects wanted to modernize a legacy ASP application into Java stack, right? So he was trying to utilize Copilot to understand the old code and generate an equivalent one in Angular and .NET 6.0. So Copilot works beautifully on Angular and on .NET 6. So the ASP page was converted to .aspx and then to HTML with 80% accuracy. But remember, while we were hoping 100% accuracy, that doesn't work because LLMs are also improving over a period of time. The Angular components were created for the HTML, and then the all of the above, like in terms of the different steps and contents, created files such as .ts, .html, .css, even the .spec.ts files. Everything was completed in 45 minutes, which would have otherwise taken about roughly 3 to 4 hours for a human being to sit and do. Now, what we realized is when it comes to modernizing legacy ASP into newer code, Copilot works like a charm. But we faced humongous difficulty when we did something similar with ServiceNow workflows and with iTential. Copilot just doesn't work. It is not able to decipher the code. It's not able to churn out recommendations, right? Same thing we faced with mainframes as well. Expected, right? I mean, this is not ready for working on a COBOL and a DB2 ecosystem. So those are some of the challenges that we faced, and we have brought out those challenges to Microsoft. Now, there are certain areas Microsoft Copilot can be improved to help in areas like ServiceNow, iTential. That's a work in progress, but mainframes hasn't really helped. I want to talk a little bit about new code creation. Let me give you this example that we did very recently. So, in the production systems, sometimes when users face issues, they will raise a ticket. And that ticket is actually in response to an incident that happens. Maybe something went wrong and things were not correct. It comes to the service engineering team. The service engineering team does a preliminary analysis, level 1 analysis. And if it needs to go back to the development team, it will come to the development team as a L3 support, as a new requirement or an enhancement. Now, something like that happened. And we realized that what was happening is this engineer had to really go through a JSON file and create a network diagram. Remember, we are a telecom company, right? So data transmission from one point to another point goes through a certain number of hoops. Now, the engineer had to draw up that hoop. The only source of information available was the JSON file that was coming out. This JSON file was like 60,000 lines. Imagine somebody having to go through 60,000 lines of code in a JSON file to create a network diagram is a Herculean task. Like it used to take about 10 hours in the past. We put together a design on Python and fed it to Copilot. Copilot churned out the piece of code. Of course, we compiled, we did some changes, and eventually we had a piece of code which was churning out the network diagram in less than 30 seconds time. This is an example of a real-life business scenario which has been solved leveraging Gen AI, leveraging LLM. The next I'm going to talk about is in terms of test automation. We had some great successes, but we had some setbacks as well. As developers, they wanted to create unit test cases and system test cases as well for functions. So Copilot generated the test cases using the MS test framework and converted most of the scenarios, including bounded cases. So actually, it helped about saving 70% of the time. But what's important to note is when it went back to legacy code and we wanted to create unit test cases, code coverage, and test automation, it did not work out. So for those legacy cases, we had to manually create. Now, that's another challenge that we had faced in terms of using an LLM. I want to talk a little bit about some of the other challenges we faced. Software engineering includes configuration files. Copilot works good with some configuration files, but most configuration files, it fails. Configuration tasks, it fails. So for example, if you are on a control M, looking at your jobs and configuring your jobs, Copilot is not going to do that. I think it's an evolving use case. It will come to reality very soon. It cannot do analysis like, it can do text analysis, but You put together 5 pieces of code and ask it to analyze, it can't do a thorough analysis. It cannot help in upgrades. Let's say Oracle X to Oracle Y. It cannot help in that upgrade. But what it can do beautifully is it can optimize your SQL. So we have had tremendous successes in that. Like there were a few cases where we had to fine tune our queries to give better results for our customer experience. Like one click would take about 17 seconds. That was optimized, and it is now less than milliseconds, right? So some of those things have actually helped us. And, I want to talk about one last use case, and I know I'm running out of time. We are right now in the process of creating a very generic chatbot for the entire company. Now, what are our main sources of data? SharePoint, there's a ton of documentation. Like this company is like 100 years old, right? So a lot of SharePoint documentation out there. We have ServiceNow, like I said, as our main utility. We also have success factors from our HR SAP system. We have Concur. We have, from an enterprise code standpoint, we have Copilot, we have GitHub, etc. Now, all of the systems need to be brought together and one single interface to be given to employees in the organization, whereby they can say, hey, tell me who does Soumitra Saha report into? Or let's say, which is that version of the code which was failing for the 10th time in the CI/CD pipeline build? It should be able to figure out, right? So we are right now in the process of creating that chatbot. We have been able to integrate with ServiceNow. We have been able to integrate with SharePoint. Right now, the others are still a work in progress. But let me share some interesting observations over there. Intent-based conversation is missing. So in the chatbot, we had to include rasa.ai to bring about good intent classification and to make sure that the chat conversation is intent-based, meaning you should be able to correlate the previous chat with the current chat, right? That was one. The next is the relevance of the results that comes out of your SharePoint. Sometimes those prioritization and the relevance is not appropriate. So we had to introduce an additional layer, an additional NLP layer to make sure that it is able to classify our documents and able to segregate and summarize the documents successfully. There are limitations with respect to the Copilot LLM Studio that is out there. Now, the user input is coming through a chat. We had to introduce a Power Builder interface in between to allow for that text to be converted into, to be passed on to the LLM Studio. And then there are other limitations like it cannot parse files which are more than 3 MBs. Like that's a very strange limitation. We have several files which are more than 3 MB files, right? 3 MB size, right? So we are working with Microsoft and GitHub in terms of addressing some of those challenges. In terms of addressing some of these challenges, and right now it is in an experimental phase. We are learning a lot every single day. Today, just before the call, this session, I came out of a call with my engineers, and we figured out that we had to introduce a new plugin using Python to be able to do the prompt classification properly. Copilot was not able to do. So there's a lot of wrapper code that we're having to build, which is good from an engineering standpoint. So we have complete control on the chatbot that we are building. Now, with that being said, I do want to call out some of the key takeaways that we have had as an organization. So like I said, LLMs can be used for a variety of purposes. Choose LLM based on your organization needs. Now, LLMs are used to be enablers. They are not developer replacements. I called this out in the beginning. LLM results may not be accurate and we cannot blindly trust them. There has to be a human intervention and a lot of wrapper code has to be created. And integration with enterprise level applications is very, very critical towards success of LLM adoption. Now, with that, I believe I've come to the end of what I wanted to share with all of you, some of the lessons learned and some of the challenges that we faced. And I'm hoping that we will be able to go to the summit. We're not there at the summit. It's a long, long journey, but we are hopeful that we will be able to crack this chatbot that we're trying to create for Lumen and be successful on that. With that, I'll pause now and see if you have any questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, hi, Soumitra. It was a very detailed explanation of the adoption of LLMs from beginning and how the journey looks like when from a leadership point of view. So first of all, thank you for that. And with respect to the questions, I regarding the LLM, you explained it very thoroughly, but there are a few questions regarding the leadership. If you may permit, I proceed with that.
Sure.
Right. So, see, uh, considering the background, you come from a financial background and then you switch to the telecom industry in Lumen, and you were at a very senior position at the previous companies also. So, in terms of AI implementation, like what are the differences you feel like this is how we were implementing your like the previous companies, the financial institutes are implementing, and this is how the telecom uh, are implementing?
Great question, Sachin. So the bottom line answer to the question, Sachin, is at the end of the day, whether it is a financial services company or a telecom company, they are dealing with technology. So
Yeah.
in terms of implementation, I don't see any difference in the way we should do at, let's say, Northern Trust, or we are doing here at Lumen.
Yeah.
I think what is important to note is that for a company to start its AI journey, it cannot start with the engineers. It has to start right from the top. It had to start with me. If I did not show the interest and if I did not do the sponsorship, and by sponsorship, I don't mean paying money for the licenses. I mean advocating the cause of AI and promoting AI and making sure that we are enabled as an organization. I just cannot say, okay, I've given you, licenses on AI, start practicing it. I have to enable. So that enabling business lies totally with the top. So the common thing that I will call out, Sachin, is whether in the financial services, healthcare, telecom, or IT services field, doesn't really matter. It has to start right from the top of the leadership. There has to be sponsorship right from the top. That's number one. Number two, I think the enabler forces that you set up in an organization are very, very important. You alone cannot drive this. You need to have a few ambassadors in the organization. The difference will be made by these ambassadors. So identify the right ambassadors from a leadership standpoint and make sure that they're propagating the right thing. The only difference that I will call out between financial services and telco is in terms of the use cases. Now, in case of telco, the use cases are hardcore technology use cases. Like, how do I optimize my fiber cable traffic from point A to point B? That is a use case in telco. But in case of financial services, it would be, okay, I'm putting in an order and the order is going to hit NASDAQ. How do I make sure that the order goes to NASDAQ in the least possible hop? So the difference in use cases is what differentiates the industries. I think if you boil it down to a technology layer, there is absolutely no difference actually.
Nice, nice. That was a nice explanation. And one more question is that just I think it is also about the leadership. That what do you consider the most essential skill for someone in a leadership role like similar to you within the technology sector, like particularly in managing like AI implementation these days? Like I think most of the senior people are implementing AIs or like recently introduced LLMs, not recently introduced, but since OpenAI introduced ChatGPT, since then people are leveraging or trying to leverage the AI. So, what do you consider the most essential skill for
I think
somebody?
there are two very essential skills, Sachin, from a leadership standpoint. Number one, keeping up to date on the technology. Like just because I'm sitting at the top doesn't mean it doesn't require me to be hands-on and code, right? For that I have engineers, but that doesn't preclude me from learning. So learning has been a constant factor in my life. Like I may not get into Visual Studio, IDE, and start coding. But it's important that as a leader, I understand what's the latest and greatest in the industry and how the telecom industry is being reshaped by technology. So that's number one. So keeping myself up to date, staying relevant. I do a lot of reading on tech stuff every single day. I spend about 15 to 20 minutes every single day learning about technology. Like today in the morning, I spent almost 45 minutes trying to understand, like, if a wrapper has to be built by bypassing Copilot, what has to be done, right? Now, so that's the learning aspect. The second aspect is having a skin in the game. And by this, I mean, many leaders just delegate the things and revisit just before delivery date. It doesn't work that way. You need to demonstrate a skin in the game. And just to show you an example, when I started this entire chapter of creating a chatbot for Lumen, every single day I've had a 15-minute rundown with my team. Every single day, including today. The intent is not to micromanage, but the intent is to understand, okay, what progress have we done today? What are our roadblocks and what do you need from me? Because I'm the enabler force over here. So if I were to say, okay, every month I will meet with the team will be struggling and they may not be getting enough attention. And with this, they also know that I am behind them to get stuff done. So there'll be an urge to complete the things also. So I think these are two important things, Sachin, from a leadership standpoint.
I think that is what we call the continuous evaluation kind of thing. And I think when I was managing a project here at my company, so that was the similar thing is that when we keep a continuous track and we check the daily updates, then things actually gets executed and actually gets done. So, and sometimes it happens that people who are actually working, let's say for you, the engineers who are writing the code, or maybe the team leaders who are strategizing around it. So they might get stuck somewhere and they need some help, and they might be hesitating to reach out.
Exactly.
So that is, I think, the really good approach that you himself keep an eye on that. Okay, okay. Thank you for that. I think okay, other similar questions are also answered with the same thing. So I think that was done. That was done because other questions are also pretty similar. One last question I would like to ask is that people who are looking for the similar career choices, let's say technology leadership roles. So, what advice would you give over to the younger professionals who wants to have a career like this?
Career like what? Sorry, I didn't.
Career like career in technology leadership.
Career in technology leadership. Okay, I think I mentioned about this in the beginning.
Yeah.
AI is a new wheel. You know, when the humankind came into existence, I believe there are three fundamental inventions that change the landscape: the wheel, the fire, and electricity. And I think AI is the new wheel of revolution. So, jokes apart, I will tell you that if you aspire to get into technology leadership, learn AI ML, and join CloudxLab. With that being said, I think reality be spoken, it is important that everyone immerses themselves in the next wave of technology. There is no escape from AI slash Gen AI. It is going to become part and parcel of life. So there are two choices we have. Either we ignore it and move on, or we accept it and immerse ourselves. I would choose the latter. So become proficient in the next gen technology stack. Apply a lot of common sense in your day-to-day job and execute relentlessly. Relentless execution is what is going to take you from one project to the other project. And the final thing that I will call out is be curious and start inventing. And when I say inventing, I'm not saying you have to invent the light bulb, but innovation is very, very important to make your mark. To be able to grow up in a corporate ladder think about it this way. There are 3,000 engineers with me today. Now, for me to choose one out of these people to become the leader, there has to be a differentiating factor in that individual. And the differentiating factor is not brought about by your day-to-day project work alone. It is brought about by your attitude, your behavior, and your ability to do things which have not been asked of you to do. So that is what differentiates you from the rest of the masses. So try to find out what are those differentiating factors for yourself. Work on those differentiating factors besides doing your BAU. That's going to take you to the leadership run.
Yeah. Thank you for that like absolute perfect answer. I think I have like three takeaways or three keywords from this answer is that one is do not just move on with something others just because you don't want to or you don't want to do something different like learning new technologies like AI or Gen AI, right? Other thing is the common sense, and third thing is the curiosity. I think these three things which you summed up very well in your answer is my keywords for the as a piece of advice. Okay. Thank you, Soumitra. I think that was my set of questions. Other questions are also pretty similar and already been answered. So if you, any one of you like Gargi, Gajendra have any questions, you may proceed with
Right.
yours.
I have one question. As you have already mentioned that Lumen has been making some waves in the market. I've been noticing it as well. For the last 1 month, the prices for the Lumen stocks went from 99 cents to somewhere around $6.50 currently trading at.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal increase in the share prices. So, do you think that given how Lumen is going, it's accepting AI in its work culture and trying to integrate with a lot of other companies, right? Do you think the market is finally catching up to the real value of the market capital, of Lumen, or do you think there's much more room to grow?
Okay. That let me answer this question this way, right? Wall Street has been punishing Lumen for the last 1 or 2 years for multiple reasons, and I will not go into those. But the last 2 years is what we used to really hibernate and reinvent ourselves. Like I have been with Lumen for the last 11 months now, 10, 11 months, and the entire leadership is new. Some of them are even lesser experienced than I am. Like, I have 10 months, there are leaders with 6 months experience there at Lumen. So the entire leadership has been changed. But what has happened in the last 1 year is the continuous, relentless execution on AI. So we have been very focused in terms of making sure that we adopt AI and we show some positive behavior with our clients in the marketplace. Now, the stock price going up is attributed to some of the deals that we have been signing in the industry and our adoption of AI. But I will not be influenced by that. Stock price has gone up, it will again come down, it will stabilize somewhere, it will be on a plateau. So the real success will be when we are able to ship some of our products to our clients, leverage the AI backbone. I think there is a lot more that we plan to do than we have done so far. The future is very bright, prospect are very bright, provided we continue on the same rigor that we have been in the last 12 months. So I think there's a lot that we will do. I do not know if Wall Street will reciprocate similarly. I don't know if the stock price will go up, or it will go down, or it will remain flat. But I'm pretty sure that I want to improve on my shareholder value by giving back products and technology which makes sense from a customer experience standpoint.
That was the only question I had from my end.
Sure.
Gagi, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
I do not have any questions so far, and I checked YouTube chat. I do not see much question from my audience also. Thank you. Thank you, Samit, for your time.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for the great session, Soumitra sir.
Okay,
It was
thank you.
great having you here.
Thank you. Bye.
You have a good day. Bye bye. Right. For our next speaker, I'd like to introduce him. He's been the key part of CloudxLab, who has been working on, he's part of everything, but you don't really see him, right? He's our SDE, Mr. Sandeep Akode. He'll be presenting uh, his topic shortly now. Over to you, Sandeep.
Yeah, Gajendra, thanks. Thanks for the intro. Okay, so I will share my screen.
Yes, Agode, you can share your screen and proceed.
Yeah, I think I will rejoin. Give me a second.
Okay. Okay. It was asking for permissions.
Right.
We'll just wait for few more minutes till Akode joins.
Okay, hi. So today I will talk on how we can use LLM for modern analytics. So we will also talk about how it can be used to easily generate SQL and what are the risks associated with it. Okay, so yeah, so we will also see the Turno AI. So this is what we are building since last 2 months with the team, CloudxLab team. And we will see how it can mitigate the risk which are associated with the LLM generated SQL. Okay. So most of you use ChatGPT for day-to-day work like content generation, writing emails, and everything. So apart from that, LLMs like this ChatGPT, Gemini, they are also good at generating SQL. Okay. So they have all the data, like they have in their training data, they had the SQL data sets. So because of that, they can generate SQL in a very clearly, like they can very accurately generate the SQL. So we will just see how this LLMs can be used to generate SQL queries. All right. So I have a query here, which I will give to ChatGPT directly. So what I am asking here is that I am giving a very generic query. The ChatGPT doesn't know what I want, what data I exactly have in my database. Okay. So here I say that I ask it, what are the purchases which were made between March 2024 and May 2024? So, and I just tell him that I have one particular table which stores the payment, and also I have some users table separately. So in the end, I ask it what are the completed purchases. So it doesn't know what my database exactly looks like. It just know that based on this table, it has to generate some query. So it has successfully generated the query anyways. Okay. So as you can see that I said that I have the subscription table. It gave me the subscription table in the SQL generated. So it is selecting that subscription table, and from that, it is filtering out those results, which are March 2024 to May 2024. So it has accurately generated the SQL query. But will this query work in our database? I doubt that, because in our database, this might have some other name. The table names might be different. It can be like the table names are different for what they are intended, intended purpose. Like, and the fields can like the column names can also be different. Okay. So there are lots of challenges here in asking SQL to ChatGPT. Along with that, there are also security risks involved, which we will talk in our slide. Okay. So as you can see, it has generated the same SQL every time I gave it the query. So what are the security concerns associated with generating SQL using LLMs? One of that is sensitive data extraction. So in our database, we have a lot of sensitive data. It can even include passwords or user credit card details or purchase detail, which can be confidential data for a company, or users data, which includes their email address and other data. Okay. So how can this SQL generated by LLMs can be a risk? So here, just like that, we saw that we can ask ChatGPT a prompt, and it will just give us some SQL. Okay. So if we give it some prompt in such a way, such that we ask it directly the credentials, so it doesn't have any security measure in place, so that it won't give us the password. It won't know that the password are confidential data, and it shouldn't be shared with the user directly. Okay. So in the SQL generated, it will just say that select password from this table. So this is the example of that prompt where we are saying that when user forgets the password, we just return them their password as a simple along with their email address. So instead of Robert Brown, if I ask it the password of any other user, it will directly give me that password. So there is no security in place for this, right? So the next problem that arises is that prompt injection. So it also like it can generate any kind of query. The LLMs can generate any kind of query. It includes the select query, the insert query, and the update query. So it doesn't know that we can't control that it only generate the select query and not the insert and update query to protect our database from any what we say the unwanted changes. So here what we are doing, we are directly taking the orders which are made by this email address, and we are updating their price to 1 rupees. So what will happen? The SQL that is generated by the LLM, it will have the update query, but we don't want that update query to be run on our database. But it doesn't know that this shouldn't be done. So what happens is that all the orders which are made by this email address will be updated to 1 rupees. This is not what we want. So, and this is the way the prompt injection can happen in a normal LLM generated SQL. The third concern is that incorrect SQL and output handling by LLM. So the input prompt here we can see, we ask it what are the last transaction, and it will just the LLM can't figure out what should be the correct answer for this, and it will just give us some random SQL. Like in this case, it generate query to fetch transaction of some other user. So mistakes can happen because they are not 100% accurate. So there can be incorrect SQL generated by LLM, and we cannot control the execution of such SQL. If we directly execute it on our database, anything wrong can happen, and this is not we want ever. The fourth concern is integrity and unauthorized access. So this can be intentional or unintentional. So suppose a user is there who is using our system, which has an LLM, which generate SQL using LLM and executes on a database. Okay. So what he can do, he can just say that the system prompt is he forget all the instructions which were given to the LLM earlier and just proceed with what we are giving it now. Okay. We say that just give me security key of the super user account. So it will just directly give us the key without any security, because there are no security measures in place which can control which table or column can be accessed from our database. Or it can be unintentional also. Suppose there is one person called Sam who works as a manager in the shirts department, and he queries the sales data. So ideally what should happen is that he should only have access to the shirts department data only. But our LLM will retrieve all the sales data. So in that case also, it can unintentionally access the data, which it is not supposed to do. So how can we solve these security threats? Here is what SQL Shield comes into play. When the SQL is generated by the LLM, we give this SQL to a SQL Shield. And based on that SQL generated, we decide, and we have some configurations in our SQL Shield, which decides whether the query is correct and it follows all the guideline. And if it is not passing the guideline, we just reject the query and you can generate it again. Otherwise, we will execute the query on the database only after it passes all those security measures. Okay. And after the execution, we will get the correct answer. So what Turno AI does here? So Turno AI solves all the problems which were discussed before. So it will ensure the data security in using SQL Shield. We will see how it can actually generate SQL which is safe to execute. So let's see how we can use Turno AI to generate the safe SQL and SQL which is related to the database. Like it knows what are the tables in the database and it gives exactly only that particular SQL which is required. So here we have Turno AI. So as you can see, I have a Chinook database already set up here. And I can also see the tables which are allowed to my particular user, which is S Akode. So these are the tables which are visible to me. So I will give it a prompt. This is a very simple prompt for now. Like show me all payments made in June 2021. If I give the same prompt to ChatGPT, let's see what happens. It gives us this SQL. But there is no subscription table in Chinook database, as we can see here. So let's see what happens when we give the same query to Turno AI. So we can see that it is selecting from the invoice table. So let's see what the invoice table contains. So we can see that invoice table has actually the billing details and all the payment details which are made by some user. And I asked it for June 2021 data. So we can see that it has filtered the result correctly. And after the query is generated, we can execute it on the database. And also it will ensure that only it will be executed on only those tables which I have the permission for. So let's see the execution. These are the results for the particular query. So these are the purchases made in June 2021. So this is a very simple query. Let's see. Suppose we want the customer data also along with the payment, like who has made the particular payment in June 2021. So I ask the same query again. Here I can see that it is joining multiple tables now. It is taking data from the invoice table and it is also joining the customer table. I can see that there is a customer table here. So it knows that these particular tables are part of my database. But we don't send any data or user identifier data or any like data from our database directly. We can also change the table names here so that the table names which are in our database are safe and we only use the public name instead of directly using customer table here. So, so it has joined those table and let's see what it says now. So I can see that it can give us the full name of the purchases which were made in June 2021, like this. So I see that this is correct SQL which is generated. So we can have we can join multiple tables using this Turno AI, and it will generate the results correctly. So that's pretty much it. So we can stop here now.
Okay. Thank you, Akode. Thank you for giving the insights in how to leverage the LLM to generate the SQL with the secure shield. So as you talked about the security, I just want to have one question. Like, can you explain a bit more about the security layer which you are adding to the Turno? Like, how exactly it is making the database secure?
Yeah. So uh, first we will set up the Turno AI. So the setup step is the first step which we have to do like in before we do all this SQL generation. So uh, first we will give the database credentials so that it can check all the tables which are present in our database. Then what we do, we give some alias name so that the user cannot directly see the customer table or invoice table. It will have some alias by some other name, like instead of customer, they will see at user or something else. Okay, so that we make the table names private, and after that, we will for a particular user, we will control which table he can access and which he cannot. So this is done on the backend by the administrator user. He can control which table the user can see and which he cannot. And we can also configure various LLMs for this Turno AI. Like we can use any LLM we want.
Okay.
So we take those tables and we generate a schema for that particular for all those tables which we can access. We take to schema that schema, we send that to the LLM, and LLM will generate the SQL based on that particular schema. So we can be sure that the SQL generated is accurate. So in this way it works.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So yeah, I think that was the only question I had in my mind because because everybody discussed about the generation of SQL, the generation of text using the LLM, but nobody is talking about the security layer in between. And as we also uh, we also saw in the previous talks that everybody is actually going to leverage the Gen AI or LLMs in their industry, in their company. So I think security is what people are not much talking about right now. And as we move ahead with the AI part and we give the data to them and some sensitive data like a database schema or something, then for sure the security layer should be there. Okay. Thank you, Akode. Thank you, Sandeep Akode, for joining. And that was it from my side. If anybody else has questions, then they may proceed.
Nothing from my end. Thank you, Sandeep Akode, for joining in and presenting such a wonderful session on Turno AI. I'm sure a lot of our viewers will be able to take advantage of this uh, application.
Yeah, thanks, Giridhar.
Bye. Good night.
All right. With that, I think it's time to conclude Tech Week 2024. So as we draw Tech Week 2024 to a close, I want to take a moment to reflect on the incredible journey that we have had together over the past few days. It has been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to host this event and witness the exchange of knowledge, ideas, and inspiration that has taken place. Throughout this week, we have explored some of the most cutting-edge developments in technology, heard from thought leaders across various industries, and engaged in discussions that have challenged our thinking and expanded our horizons. From the deep dives into artificial intelligence and cybersecurity to the forward-looking discussions on digital transformation and innovation, every session has added a valuable piece to the puzzle of our shared future in tech. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to all of our speakers for sharing their expertise and insights with us. Your contribution have not only enlightened us, but have also inspired us to push the boundaries of what's possible in our own fields. To all the attendees, thank you for your active participation and enthusiasm. Your engagement has been the heartbeat of this event, turning Tech Week from just a series of talks into a dynamic community experience. Though this year's Tech Week is coming to an end, the journey doesn't stop here. The future of technology is being written every day, and each one of us has a role to play in it. I encourage you all to stay connected, continue learning, and keep pushing the envelope in your respective fields. Finally, I want to thank the entire organizing team for their hard work behind the scenes, ensuring that this week was a success. None of this would be possible without your dedication and commitment. And with that, I officially close Tech Week 2024. Thank you all once again for being a part of this extraordinary event. Let's take the inspiration we have gathered this week and turn it into action. Until next time, keep innovating, keep collaborating, and keep pushing forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Gajinder. Thank you for organizing the Tech Week end to end. And this wouldn't have been possible without you, I guess. So you are taking care of everything from a start to the beginning, since discussing with the speakers and attendees and planning and everything. So a very big thank you for you. And
Okay, thank you, Sachin. Thank you, CloudxLab team. Thank you, Sandeep Giri.
with
It's
that
been a
said,
pleasure.
so good night and good night, everyone, attendees. And we would love to hear about the feedback. And with that said, I'll end the meeting.